There's a moment right before everything changes, a moment most people miss because they're too busy looking for the wrong signs. And today, you'll discover exactly how to recognize when your breakthrough is closer than you think. Have you ever wondered why some people suddenly explode with success after years of nothing? Why someone works in silence for months and then overnight, everything clicks into place? It's not random, it's not luck. There's an ancient recognition system created by samurai warriors in feudal Japan that reveals exactly when transformation is about to occur. They call it Zencho, the signs before change. And once you understand these signals, you'll never doubt your path again. But there's a warning. These signs don't look like what you expect. They look like failure. They look like everything is falling apart. But before I show you what to look for, subscribe to the channel, like it below, and comment on the breakthrough you're working toward right now. This helps me a lot and shows me that you're genuinely committed to your transformation. Let's go. Chapter 1. The Darkness Before Dawn. The story I'm about to tell you happened to a young samurai named Takeshi. He trained under Master Yamamoto for 3 years. 3 years of brutal practice. 3 years of getting beaten in every sparring match. 3 years of feeling like he was getting worse instead of better. Every morning at 4 a.m., wooden sword in hand, same drills, same defeats. His fellow students whispered behind his back. Some of them quit and got normal jobs. They said Takeshi was wasting his life. Even his own father told him to give up. The pattern was always the same. Monday, train and lose. Wednesday, train and lose. Friday, train and lose. Sunday, question everything. Takeshi tried analyzing his technique. He studied scrolls. He watched the advanced students. Nothing changed because he was looking for progress in the wrong place. He was measuring improvement by wins and losses when the real transformation was happening somewhere he couldn't see. Until the day Master Yamamoto pulled him aside and explained why the darkness always comes right before the light. And no, it's not about positive thinking. It's about understanding the invisible process that happens right before mastery arrives. Chapter 2. The Law of Unseen Progress. In the dojo, there's a teaching that seems cruel but reveals everything. Kutsugeshi. Literally translated, it means the overturning of suffering. It describes the moment when accumulated practice suddenly inverts into visible skill. Do you understand what that means? It means that for months or even years, your practice creates no visible results. Zero. You work and work and work and nothing appears to change. This is where everyone quits. This is where your friends tell you it's not working. This is where you start believing you're the exception, the one person for whom the system doesn't work. You want to know what never happens in a traditional dojo? No master panics when a student shows no progress for months. The question simply doesn't exist in their minds. Why? Because they understand something you don't yet. Your brain and body accumulate skill invisibly before expressing it visibly. Think of it like filling a bucket with water drop by drop. For hours, the bucket looks empty. Then, suddenly, one drop causes it to overflow. That overflow moment looks like sudden success to everyone watching, but you know the truth. It was every single drop that came before. A neuroscientist at Tokyo University who's been studying skill acquisition for 18 years discovered something revolutionary. The brain builds neural pathways in darkness before activating them in performance. You practice the same movement 1,000 times with no improvement. Then, on attempt 1001, suddenly perfect execution. The first 1,000 attempts weren't failures, they were construction. That's exactly what was happening to Takeshi. Every loss, every defeat, every humiliating sparring match was building pathways his conscious mind couldn't detect. Master Yamamoto watched him carefully, not his wins and losses. He watched for the signs, the subtle signals that Kutsugeshi was approaching. On day 847 of training, Takeshi noticed something strange. He lost his sparring match as usual, but this time he felt different. The defeat didn't crush him the way it used to. Something fundamental had shifted inside. This was the first sign. Chapter 3. Emotional Numbness. When you're close to breakthrough, you stop feeling the pain of failure, not because you've given up, because you've transcended the need for external validation. Takeshi noticed he no longer checked how other students perceived him. He didn't compare his progress to theirs. He didn't care if people thought he was wasting his time. The opinions that used to torment him at night simply stopped mattering. This isn't apathy. This is detachment. The samurai understood that attachment to outcome creates suffering. When you stop needing the result becomes inevitable. Your energy that was wasted on worry now flows entirely into practice. Here's what most people don't understand about this phase. It feels like you've stopped caring. Your friends will say you've lost your passion. They'll say you're going through the motions. Perfect. This numbness is actually the sign that your ego is dying. And when your ego dies, your true skill can finally emerge. But Takeshi discovered something even stranger. His losses were starting to feel different. Chapter 4. Failures become specific. When in the beginning, when Takeshi lost, everything felt wrong. His stance, his timing, his breathing, everything. But now, on day 892, he could pinpoint exactly what went wrong. Master Yamamoto struck his left side because Takeshi dropped his guard by 3 inches for half a second. The failure was no longer a blur of incompetence. It was precise, measurable, correctable. When your failures become specific, breakthrough is close. Vague failure means you're still learning what the game actually is. Specific failure means you understand the game completely. You're no longer learning what to do, you're calibrating how to do it. A Harvard researcher who has studied expertise development for 25 years explains it perfectly. Novices fail globally, experts fail locally. When you can name exactly where and why you failed, your brain has mapped the entire skill. You're no longer learning what to do, you're calibrating how to do it. Takeshi started keeping a journal. Every defeat he wrote one sentence. Today, I dropped my right shoulder during the counterstrike. Today, my footwork was slow by half a step on the pivot. Today, I telegraphed my intention with my eyes before moving. Each failure was becoming a data point instead of an identity statement. He was no longer a failure. He was a scientist collecting information. Then came the third sign, the one that confused him completely. Chapter 5. Everything falls apart. Day 940. Takeshi had his worst week of training in 3 years. He lost every match badly. Moves that used to work stopped working. Techniques he'd mastered suddenly felt foreign. He actually went backwards. This is the moment everyone quits. This is when you think the system is broken. This is when you believe you've wasted years of your life on something that will never work. But Master Yamamoto smiled when he saw it, because falling apart is the sign your brain is reorganizing at a higher level. Your old patterns are dissolving to make room for new ones. It feels like destruction. It's actually reconstruction. Think of a caterpillar in a cocoon. Inside that cocoon, the caterpillar doesn't gradually grow wings. It completely dissolves into liquid. Its entire structure breaks down before reforming as a butterfly. If you opened the cocoon during that dissolving phase, you'd think the caterpillar was dying. You'd try to save it. You'd ruin the transformation. Your breakdown is your cocoon phase. The old you is dissolving. The new you is forming, but you can't see it yet because you're inside the process. Takeshi wanted to quit. For the first time in 3 years, he actually considered walking away. Master Yamamoto sat with him after training. He said nothing. He simply showed Takeshi his own journal from 40 years ago. The entries were identical. Week of complete collapse right before my first tournament victory. Everything I knew stopped working. I thought I'd lost my mind. The breakthrough came 3 days later. Takeshi decided to train for 3 more days. Chapter 6. The fourth sign. Time distortion. Takeshi stepped into the sparring circle. Master Yamamoto attacked, but something was different. Everything moved in slow motion. Takeshi saw the strike coming before it arrived. He watched his own body respond with perfect technique. He wasn't thinking, he wasn't deciding. He was witnessing his body execute movements he didn't consciously choose. The match lasted 30 seconds. Takeshi won, but it felt like 30 minutes had passed. When you enter flow state for the first time, time distorts. Your brain is processing so much information so quickly that external time seems to slow down. This is the neurological sign that your practice has become automaticity in a skill. You're no longer thinking your way through the skill, you're embodying it.
A neuroscientist at Kyoto University who has been studying flow states for 16 years found that when you achieve automaticity in a skill, your prefrontal cortex actually decreases activity. Thinking turns off, performance turns on. Time perception changes because your brain is no longer narrating the experience, it's simply executing. Over the next week, Takeshi won 6 matches in a row. Movements he'd practiced 10,000 times were suddenly effortless. The breakthrough had arrived. But here's what nobody tells you about breakthroughs. They don't feel how you expect. You think breakthrough will feel like fireworks, like suddenly you're a different person and everyone recognizes your transformation. That's not what happens. Breakthrough feels quiet. It feels natural. It feels like you've always been this person and you're just remembering how. Takeshi expected to feel ecstatic. Instead, he felt calm. The desperate need to prove himself was gone.